Well, hello, you ferocious warriors of Yahuwah. How you guys doing? Huh? You living courageously? Hey, I know I've been doing a bunch of like random, almost book reviews. People are like, I like the book reviews. I was like, I never thought of them as a book review, but they're pretty lengthy in course, right? We've been doing a lot on the Genesis 6 conspiracy. What the heck happened at Mount Hermon? The mark of the beast, the twisting of the triple helix, the infiltration of the kingdom of darkness into the temple of man, the augmentation of the very nature of what makes us image bearers of the great creator, and why it is that Yahweh has got to send the angels to sift out the wheat from the tares, because clearly you can't just go into that field and visually identify them as easily and know which one's going to be which. Not till the very end when their fruit is borne out. This is the War of the Ages. If you guys haven't watched previous parts in the series, you don't have to. But it's incredibly invigorating if you do. I assure you of that. You'll come away with some powerhouse packed stuff, because you know what? We've been diving into all kinds of different authors that are some of my favorites. I love books so much, you guys. I do. They're a way of preserving informations, because there's some just brilliant minds out there. Like, people are blow my mind how smart people actually are in who have studied arenas of topics that I find fascinating. I was so bored in school, so I just turned to reading other books than what they told us to do. I was actually not the best student. I did fine, pretty great when I needed to, but I didn't really. I bucked the system like crazy. If you can't tell already, I'm like adamantly opposed to every form of compulsory education, because I don't like it when people muzzle me or muzzle the truth, or they make us like memorize and regurgitate all kinds of lies and New World Order agenda and that kind of garbage. But bear with me. I'm ridiculously fired up. I took a cold shower and I feel like I've got electricity in my bones. Seriously, it's like free joy. You guys, just so you could start out your shower hot. That's okay. I get it. Start out your shower hot, then turn it to cold, man. Just be in it. Just let it happen. Just embrace it. You'll come out all kinds of you'll laugh. I bet you anything you'll laugh. And then you'll snicker in the face of darkness and you'll be ready for war. Oh, it's so good. I'm just enthused and invigorated. I was reading Hosea. How many of you guys just dive into Hosea lately? I got another book in the mail and I'm super excited. I've never read this one. This is the Kingdom Priesthood. If you guys have book recommendations for me, like some of your like powerhouse go get 'ems, like some of your just go-to weapons of warfare books, paradigm shifters, just ravaged teeth, like your silver bullets, put them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, or send me an email. You know what I mean? If you got PDFs from them, that's great too. I try to find some of these books available for free. In my opinion, the way I like labor in ministry is I give everything I have away. Like I say in the very bottom of these descriptions in all of my videos, there's all kinds of awesome links, you guys. Other people that have put out their resources for free. That's like my approach in ministry. Like, give it away as best as you can, and then pray to the Father and ask him to reward you however he sees fit. I like took the parable in the scriptures where Yeshua is like telling the story about all of these workers who go out. Man, I'll just read it to you because it's so good. I'm just saying, you guys, just get you fired up, light you up. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's jump in here. Go to Matthew 20. Maybe we'll go Matthew 20. This is so good. And I had a counselor one time tell me something that was just so good on just a paradigm of like people that want to do ministry. I don't have anything against you guys that are laboring for wages. You know what I mean? By no means whatsoever. Some of us are just called to a different life. Every time I stepped into that world, like literally unbelievable problems blew up in my life. Physical ailments. Like I had a firearm blow up in my hand when I went to go do mercenary work and executive protection stuff. I got somebody come off the road and try to kill me and knocked me 30 yards off the side of the road when they hit me. It was crazy. Anyways, I could go down that for a long time. I end up hospitalized pretty regularly when I go back into that world. It's weird. But I can go out here and I can talk about all this kind of stuff, you guys. And here I am, still alive. Apparently, I can talk about all kinds of ridiculous, violently dangerous stuff and expose all kinds of terrifyingly deep, dark secrets of the enemy. And Yahuwah protects me there. But he's like, but if you go into that world, I'll cut you down. I'm like, I don't understand. He's like, don't avoid your calling, Jonah. I'm like, I'm not even Jonah. It's not even my name. But sometimes I run from Nineveh. I do. Sometimes I run from Nineveh. I'm like, it'd just be easier to have some consistency of wages. That'd be nice. He's like, no, you go preach to them. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. You guys, we have no context for the level of darkness of what Nineveh was. Like, we just don't know. We read this stuff and we're like, oh yeah, they're probably bad people. You have no idea. Unbelievable. People are like, it was like Las Vegas. I'm like, listen, until you know what Las Vegas is in its underbelly and like the underground tunnels that just circumnavigate that city, like you don't even understand the level of depravity of what these places are, because we live in a society today where it's occulted lifestyles of all these people that worship all these other immortals, right? We live in a world where it's underground now. Whereas there's times and seasons where it's just overt. That's the whole agenda. Obviously, that's like the goal of all of these organizations is to move it into where it's publicly accepted and embraced and demanded, that people literally demand the embracing of Luciferianism, the embracing of human sacrifice, that becomes the normative practices of people again, that this is embraced, so that these secret societies no longer have to operate within this clandestine world. They want it to be overt. The days of Nineveh, it was like that. These are some savage, bad people. That's why Jonah was like, I don't want to go preach to them. I think he probably had it in him, just like, full disclosure, I do it. I'm like, I just rather them all be dead. I just want them all to die instead. One-on-one, I'd like to talk to them. I see them as people when it's one-on-one, but when you see them all as collective evil, it's really easy to just be like, I want them all to die. I understand completely. And you're like, I don't want to go preach to these people. I don't want to tell them the gospel. They've already heard the gospel. They embrace the gospel of the kingdom of darkness instead. Anyways, let's jump into the words of the Messiah, shall we? Because he's a lot more sound in his approach. He's a tactician. You know what I'm saying? He didn't avoid the calling. The last words of Jonah are like, what about all their cattle? Yahoo is literally like, they've got a lot of cattle and you're more mourning about this plant. This plant died and it was giving you shade and you're all ticked about it. And you're like, that plant died. And he's like, you weren't sad about all those other people. There's a lot of innocent people caught up in this kingdom of darkness and all the underbelly of it. There's a lot of slaves, there's a lot of slaves. And so if you just go in and burn all of the empires down, the truth is you're going to kill a lot of slaves, innocents, victims, truly. And so we got to be careful about that. Stand fast. For the reign of the heavens is like a man, a householder, who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the workers for a denarius, that's a day's wages. Okay, just so you're clear. There was a denomination that was around at the time, and sometimes it was devalued. Sometimes currency was totally devalued, but other times it was generally silver. Silver's like real currency, and gold forever. Always has been, always will be. Put your money towards that in a way. Just saying. It would behoove you. Look towards the silver and gold. It's not the only thing to put your money in. You know what I'm saying? Build up that kingdom, but silver and gold's a good choice. Just saying. I had a great email from a guy who literally told me that from his youth, he was saving up, buying silver and gold, and he bought his house with gold and silver. I was like, that's awesome. What a saving, shrewd man. Way to go, man. Anyways, it's not every day you meet some or hear from somebody that's like, I bought my house with silver and gold, that it started saving in my youth. Well done. Well chosen. If you can raise up cattle and sheep and stuff like that and have your flocks multiply, it's even better, truthfully told. Flocks and stuff, a crazy good investment, but they require infrastructure and they require an incredible amount of time and labor and diligence and oversight and children, lots of children. So we have another family friend of ours who they like bought a property and they bought all these sheep that came with it. And they were like, they divided the flock that was there. I don't know, maybe it was 100-ish. This may have been more than that, maybe 160, something like that. But they divided amongst their 3 children. They're like, this is your herd, this is your herd, this is yours. And it's like, that's literally their inheritance. It's like growing for them and multiplying for them. And how they treat it, how they raise it, how they cultivate it, how they look after it. Like, these are opportunities for them to see the provision come in for them. It's a totally different way of like investing in them. Don't save up for their college fund. Please don't. Please don't put your children in that hellhole. It's a hellhole. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know about Sheol? You know what that place is? Okay, this is way worse. This is like colleges are like Tartarus. It's like the kingdom of the fallen angels is what a college is. Trade schools are reasonable. I understand. But please understand, you're shoving your children into an unbelievable system that's engineered to destroy their faith. That's what at the gates of every college should really have. And I'm talking about Christian ones too. Like, they are orchestrated in many ways to destroy doctrinally all the things that you have held to be valuable and true. Like, they're the ones who put forth a lot of these doctrines of demons that we are having to combat every single day. They're like, the sons of Elohim that were, mingling with the daughters of men, those are Sethites. Those were children of Seth. And I'm like, it doesn't say that. And they're like, yeah, but, that's kind of what we think now. And I'm like, opinions are very cheap commodities. Getting sidetracked. I'm probably a little ranty right now. This is what happens after I get in cold water. Look out, man. I'm coming for you. All right. For the reign of the heavens is like a man, a householder who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the workers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And when he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You too, go into the vineyard. Whatever is right, I shall give you." And they went. Critical piece of information here. The first people that he went to, they told him what they wanted their wages to be. Everybody else from this point on, they agreed with the man that the landowner, that he would set their wages, right? Critical piece of information. Don't miss that. And having gone out about the 6th and the 9th hour, he did likewise. And about the 11th hour, having gone out, he found others standing idle and said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one hired us." He said to them, "You too go into the vineyard, and whatever is right you shall receive." And when evening came, the master of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the first to the last." Ooh. And when those who came were hired about the 11th hour, they received a denarius. And when they first came, they thought they would receive more, but they too received each a silver piece. And when they received it, they grumbled against the householder, saying, "These last have worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us who have borne the burden and the heat of the day." But he answering said to them, "Friend, I do you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take yours and go. But I wish to give to this last man as also to you. Is it not right for me to do what I wish with my own? Or is your eye evil because I am good? Thus the last shall be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few are chosen." That's so good. Anyways, I was talking to a counselor one time, and he shared that point with me, that it was the ones who had agreed upon what their wages were going to be. They received that back to them, right? But it was the one who entrusted that the master was good to them, that he would set their wages and he paid them according to what he thought they were worth. And that's like been my approach in ministry ever since. I was like, that fits in alignment with the way I think it's supposed to be. You know, that we can petition the Father to take care of us in the way that he sees fit, and that he can open doors of opportunity in our life and set up circumstances to literally take care of us and provide for us in the way that he says is fit. You know, it's just been incredibly beneficial for me. I know not everybody who does ministry has that approach. I understand. But for me, when you put out like a book, if you can in any means be able to enable people that are incapable of paying for it have access to it, I think that's incredibly critical. You know, and it was Russ Dizdar that modeled that for me when I was at a conference back in 2014 or 2012, at that Prophecy in the News conference. And he literally told me that if any of you, or told everyone in the audience, if any of you can't afford my book, like, you don't need to do anything or say anything. You can just walk up to my table and take one. It's a gift. And that's literally how I got a copy of The Black Awakening. That was like the first time I ever got my hands on that. And it was just, it meant the world to me because I couldn't afford, I think it was $50 for his book or something at the time. Now they're, you know, like $1,000 or $2,000. However, I did hear that in February, there's a new publisher that's going to start publishing his books. Praise be to Yah, because it's been tied up since his death, murder. And so now I think that that's going to be available again for people. But he, on his website, had endless hours of teachings and resources available. And like, I consumed that stuff for years, like hundreds of hours of that guy speaking into my ear, hundreds of hours of Dr. Michael Lake and Mary Lou's ministry, like listening to it. And when I reached out, I remember reaching out to Mary Lou and Michael Lake at one point, asking him for one of his teachings on Passover. And he's like, "Yeah, you bet. You know, I'll send it over to you." You know, I was like explaining, I was like, "I just want it was a DVD teaching," and he didn't have it digitized to where I could like download it or anything. And I was like, I just want to buy that DVD. I was like, "But I can't afford the whole series that you had available for sale." And he was all like, he sent me boxes of his content. He sent me like the Kingdom Priesthood, or the Priest of One series, the Warrior of One. Like, he sent all of his like seminary professorial work, like boxes of it. And I was just like, that was generosity that just meant the world to me. And it was so much of like the foundation phase of my identity. And so it was like boot camp. You know what I mean? It was like literally like, these are the things, the tools that you need in order to run your race. And I just felt very loved in that regard. And this is why I have such a fondness for people that have that tactic and have that approach. And, you know, It's a kingdom economy mindset, and this is all about a kingdom battle that we are in. And so if we have opportunities to share what we do with others, we ought to do so as much as we can. You know what I'm saying? It's not to say that books don't cost a lot of money. Like it's not free to print a book like this or like one like this. There's a reason they cost the way they do. But I've always seen the Father work it out in the end. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, I want to jump back in with you guys to Hosea. Hosea. This is one of the greatest books in the entire scriptures. One of my favorites of all of them. If you've not read it, come on, dive in with me for a cup of deliciousness. Sweet yumminess. It's sad. It's a sad book. It's moderate tragedy. There's lots of really horrible stuff going on in here. But as we'll always see, it's a war between the immortals. It's a war between the immortals. You're going to see all kinds of little footnotes of the spirits that are at work behind the scenes, because it's always a spiritual war first before it ever plays out in the physical realm. Let's check this out here for a second. And the word of Yahuwah that came to Hosea, son of Beri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Oh, Ahaz. So it's listing out the kings that were alive during his time frame. So that's important. This will help you fit Hosea into the timeline of what was going on with all the idolatry that was taking place in the land and how that was ruling over people. Because remember, as we were talking about in the last episode, kings that were casting off the sins of their fathers, and they were purging the land from all the idolatry, from the whoredom. And then there were kings that would reestablish it, that would like re-erect all these temples for the secret societies to operate. This oscillation goes back and forth. And so when you get a name of like the kings that are alive during a prophet's life, you get an idea of understanding. There's times when he was probably persecuted severely for speaking the truth, and then there was times where he probably wasn't as much so. So that's important to remember. These guys weren't just like, we're writing a letter that happened one day. This was a lot of times a synopsis of decades, sometimes a century of time. At the beginning of the word of Yahuwah with Hosea, and Yahuwah said to Hosea, go, take for yourself a woman of whoring, the children of whoring, for the land has utterly whored away from Yahuwah. So he went and took Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. I'm just going to pause. Hold on. Okay, when I read like a word like that, whoring, okay, I'm like, I have an idea that pops into my mind, Americanish, modern century guy. Whoring pops into my mind. What does it actually mean? So let me just show you guys how like I do some study, okay? I'll just pop this up so you guys can actually come along with me on a journey, because this is a helpful tool. I know not all of us like grew up being shown like how to find out information for yourself, so you knew what to do. Okay, here you go. Come along with me. So I have a few different apps that I use when I'm doing studies like this. Bible Hub is one of the main ones that I will utilize, and I start there because I'm like, okay, ideally, if you had a scriptures that had a parallel, meaning you would have English on one side and Hebrew on the other, you could look over into the Hebrew of this verse and you can identify what's the word for whoring. Because more often than not, the English language is very much like the bottom of the bucket when it comes to being able to carry out pieces of information. It's like a stupid language comparatively to Greek, even Latin, Greek, Roman, or Hebrew. It's really, really low on the ability to bring out a lot of the depth of what's being talked about. So Hebrew is much more concept oriented, like big concepts, like you're putting a picture, like an entire encapsulating picture that comes with the word. Okay. So when I want to, I'll go to BibleHub.com, right? You can download an app for it too. Let me share this with you guys. All right. So here is Bible Hub. Okay. So we can go up here. You can drop down bar, get all of your little books up in here, and you can select your book, then your chapter and your verse, or you can just type it in here. So when we go to Hosea, go to Hosea 1 and then verse 2. You're going to see this word whoring pop up continually through the book of Hosea, also throughout all the scriptures. But it's good to have a definition of terms. The way you can build out a definition from understanding of all things. Like anytime you actually want to know the meaning behind a word, you should go to the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation and search it out. From the beginning, the first time it's used, it's called like the principle of first mention. The first time it ever pops up in the scriptures. Look it up. From there, you're going to get a big idea. Now, we're going to get from here. So it pops up Hosea 1, 2. They like to brainwash people by shoving the NIV version, the nearly inerrant version first, and the New Living Translation. Oh, these are what are called like thought for thought translations. There's a few different ways Bibles are translated. One is word for word, and then there's thought for thought. Word for word is they literally took every word and they did their I'm going to be generous here. They did their best to translate it as closely to that meaning into that language that they were putting it into. Thought for thought was more like, yeah, we just kind of get the general concept in there. And so this is why you end up with some ridiculous garbage in your Bibles, which a lot of seminaries and schools require you to memorize, require you to read. A lot of churches mandate you read or only read from a specific translation. I'm not like that. I believe there's an incredible blessing in utilizing a variety of different textual Bibles. Like I'm reading from the scriptures because it has the restored names of Yahuwah in there. And so you can get an idea of what these words actually sounded like. However, that's not to say that it's like absolutely spot on. There's errors in here. And they're even in the very beginning of it, they're like, we are humans doing our absolute utmost to try to bring translation. But because we're people, we're going to have biases. And some of the ways we translate or bring things forth are going to have that. Even the very manuscripts that they used are not the ideal manuscripts in a lot of regards to that. But I'm very thankful for it. However, when I want to find out a meaning, you like here, you can go through and read the verse from a variety of different translations. And this will help you to get a picture of what's being brought forth here. So like even in the King James version, right, we get whoredoms and the children of whoredoms. This is the word we're trying to hunt down. This is our seek and destroy mission is right here, right? Whereas the New King James version translated it into harlotry, right? An even less utilized word today, right? Whereas the New American Standard Bible translated it as infidelity. Okay, so now we got infidelity, harlotry, whoring, whoredoms, prostitution. We got prostitution in here. Okay, let's see what else we got. Children of whoredom. Whoredom seems to be fornication. There's another word for us, right? This is like relations outside of the confines of marriage. Okay, so that seems to be, there's another prostitution aspect to this. All right, so we get, seems to be the general consensus among most translators. Adultery, flagrant prostitution of oneself. All right, so that's one way you can kind of just peruse the various different translations and how they brought that forth. But then if we go up here, this is generally my preferred version of doing this. Okay, I just clicked, I did that fast. I'm sorry, you guys. I clicked the Hebrew. Okay, I should go back for a second. Forgive any pop-ups on here. Who knows what the heck's going to be on here? Selling advertisements. Dadgummit ministers, stop selling yourselves for advertising companies. Come on. We got to be better. We can't be like this. Why do we got to seek advertisement agencies that like fall down at the feet of the beast and worship him, and then we got to sell ourselves to advertisers? It sucks. I hate seeing that. Sorry. You would not believe how many times a day I get emails from people trying to sell me on advertisers and marketing. And they're like, we can generate revenue from our marketing. I'm like, you selling people just doctors of demons. No, thank you. Come on here and sell a bunch of garbage pork sandwiches and be like, oh, yummy. Sorry. I get ridiculous emails, you guys. They're like, you can buy viewers and subscriptions. You guys didn't know the vast majority of YouTube is controlled by AI bots. There's not real views a lot of times, like because people pay to have subscribers, view counts, likes, comments, all kinds of stuff, you guys. You can pay for any of that. And so you get people that are whoring themselves out to you, trying to get you to buy that stuff. It's just annoying. Anyways, okay, so you got a few different options here. You got parallel, meaning that we can pop it up so we can see it in. We'll go to parallel here so you can get an idea. Boom. Parallel translations, right? And on this side over here, this is cross references. So these are times when we see similar discussions being talked about, right? Like, and Yahweh said to Moses, you will soon rest with your fathers, and these people will rise up and prostitute themselves with the foreign gods of the land they are entering. They will forsake me and break the covenant I have made with them. This is the fundamental crux of it all, you guys. We got covenant breakers, right? And who is it with? It's always these foreign mighty ones. It's always with the immortals, you guys. It's always a war of the immortals. Okay, this is Jeremiah 3:1. If you don't know this chapter like crazy, this is a critically important chapter. If a man divorces his wife and she leaves him to marry another, can he ever return to her? Would not such a land be completely defiled? But you have played the harlot with many lovers, and would you return to me, declares Yahuwah? This is literally the chapter where Yahuwah divorces the house of Israel. That's a really big deal. Anyways, and now we're back into Hosea. Now it's going to be all through Hosea, right? Okay. All right, so now what you can jump into from here, you got summary, sermons, audio, visuals, commentary, interlineary, which is up here. This is where it's going to break down every single word with its Hebrew or Greek lexicon hyperlink associated with it. There's a lexicon, Strong's. These are different tools that you can use for understanding what the words mean. All right, and then these are different translations of that right here. Okay, so I'll go to interlinear right here because this is a way that we can actually see it more so how it's written. Hebrew is read from instead of we read left to right, they read right to left. So that's important. So if you're looking for the words and they seem to be seriously out of order, it's because this is actually how it was written, not the way how it was translated into our language. So if you're looking for the word, it might not come out in the same way. So here it says, Hosea to Yahweh and said, by Hosea, Yahweh to speak, when began, has committed harlotry, great for of harlotry, and children of harlotry, a wife yourself, take, go, Yahweh, by departing from the land. That's like a literal kind of word for word translation. So you can understand why the struggle is for translators, you guys. It's not so easy. Anyway, so here is our word, though, that we're going to be diving into right here. Has committed harlotry, tisne. So it looks like Zadi. Ooh, this is going to be exciting. Harlotry. Okay, we got more here, though. Zenunmin right here. 2183. That's the one we want. So we're going to click into that. This is the Strong's number right above it. This is how they like correlate it to a book that's like a commonly referenced dictionary for yourself. So here's harlot. We see it repeated twice. Okay. Let's jump into Zenunim, right? Zenunim. This is how they say it in Hebrew. And then they're going to show you in the concordance every time that word has been used in the scripture. So it's going to go from Genesis through to the New Testament, where it then translates into Greek. So then you got to go to a Greek version of this, the Greek Strongs, in order to find out words from that. But this is where I don't stop, okay? Because I don't like totally cling to whatever the Strong's is going to give me for like the definition of it here, because you're going to see Brown, Driver, Briggs. This is another one where it's broken out. Oh, let me go back 1 second here. I want to go back because I just want to see the breakdown of it right here. Let's see if it'll give it to me. There's Strong's 2183. Whoredom, adultery, figuratively, idolatry, whoredom. That's it. So if that's where you go with, then you're kind of stuck there. You're like, all right, that's basically what it means. That's when I pull out this dictionary, you guys. Let me jump over. All right. So now I'm going to try to hunt down that word in this, because I want to find out if there's any greater depth to the meaning of whoredom and horrid, idolatry, adultery, that kind of stuff, right? So then I pull this thing out, and it's encoded, just so you're clear. It's going to be encoded like at the top from Hebrew. So this is why you have to actually learn Hebrew, the alphabet, the alphabet aspect of it, in order to be able to utilize this, because you have to know the order of the letters, how they're presented. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Like you have to know that versus A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because it's encoded to it. So it's got this page in the very beginning here, which is where you can spend a lot of time in the beginning, especially. You start out here, which shows you the letters in English. Then it shows you them in Hebrew, and then it shows you how to pronounce them, and then it shows you kind of the order of how they're given. That's really important. And I still have to utilize that because I'm not literate in Hebrew. I'm still learning, but this is how I learn, because I learned Paleo Hebrew first, which is like pictographic. And then I translate it from modern version, which is still very confusing. It's hard for me to read the way that they write it out that way. So I kind of convert it into my own way. So it's a tedious task, you guys, but it's good for us. You know, I invent tedious task games for my toddler. You ever heard about this? Try to occupy him. You're like, here's a cup of nickels. I'm going to give you tweezers to pick up these nickels and put them in this tiny jar. It's a tedious task. That's how studying is for me when it comes to Hebrew. It's a tedious task. But by doing so, it deeply ingrains it into me. And then I don't forget that word ever. It's like really deeply ingrained in my mind. So we're going to break this word down. Zion, Noon, Yod, Mem, Zenunim. So we're going to go find Zion. All right. So I found the treasure that I've been looking for. It's on page 200 of this dictionary. Okay. And here we go. To commit fornication, to be a harlot. The Ethiopic was to commit fornication. So this is definition also from various different languages like Arabic, and Ethiopic. He goes through the definition from many different kind of forms, but he gives you the general picture from it by doing it. He committed fornication. He went after foreign gods. He committed fornication, and fornication was committed, was induced to commit fornication. That's interesting. Routing the rear of an army. Oh, these are words that are kind of parallel and close to it. Okay. They might add another letter or something. Routing the rear of an army and destroying it. Rejected, cast off, and abandoned. And fornication probably stands for, with a secondary in order to the hiatus, prostitute, whoredom, and fornication. So we get a little bit deeper understanding. We get more of the concept behind it when we dump into this one. Now, sometimes you will find shockingly deeper levels of understanding when you dive in from this dictionary's point of view. And that's always what I'm looking for, because was induced to commit fornication and routing to the rear of an army. Like, it's literally makes me think about how people are led astray into this. Like, they're beguiled in order to do these things. Like, when you go into Las Vegas, the entire city is set up to try to lead you into fornication, lead you into whoredom. Like, the entire community was designed to lead you astray. That's the spidery web of the wicked one, right? That's a way different word than just when I hear the phrase whoredom. I'm like, oh, somebody who's like fooling around with people they're not supposed to. Way more going on to that word there. So as we read along in here, try to keep that in mind, that that's the concept of what it's trying to get you there into. So a lot of times that is when I would write the Hebrew translation of it directly onto my scriptures and the page that I found it from, the Hebrew translation, and then all of those different concepts. So that as I go along throughout the scriptures, anytime from there on out, I get a better grasp of like, okay, this is what he means. That's what's important. And this is the heart of the issue that he's trying to deal with. And it carries over into the New Testament as well. So, all right, let's jump in. So he went and took Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. And Yahweh said to him, call his name Yisrael, for in a little while I shall revenge the bloodshed of Yisrael on the house of Jehu, and put an end to the reign of the house of Yisrael. And it shall be in that day I shall break the bow of Yisrael in the valley of Yisrael. And she conceived again and bore a daughter. And he said to him, call her name Lo Ruhamah, for no longer do I have compassion on the house of Yisrael, so as to forgive them at all. But I shall have compassion on the house of Yehuda, and save them by Yahuwah their Elohim, and not save them by bow or by sword or battle, by horses or horsemen. Man, maybe that's how he's going to save us all. Maybe it won't be by battle. That's why we got to just keep preaching, you guys. Maybe it won't be by battle, as much as I want it to be. And she weaned Lo Ruhamah, and conceived and bore a son. Then he said, call his name Lo Ami, for you are not my people, and I am not for you. Yet the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, which is not measured nor counted. And it shall be in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. They shall be called, you are the sons of the living El. And the children of Yehuda and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and appoint for themselves one head, and shall come out of the earth, for great is the day of Yisrael. Every time you see some major, scary, cataclysmic, declarative destructions coming on the people of Yahuwah, what you will also find so consistently linked to it is the promises for the restoration after the discipline. It's like a father who knows he's going to chastise the heck out of his son. And he's like, you know what? But later on, I'm going to have compassion on you and bring you back up, build you back up. There's always this beautiful covenanted promise. So when you're reading the book of Hosea, when you're reading some of these other prophets, and you're like, these are really brutal. These are really tough to read. But you've got to remember the level of depravity of what was taking place in that land was so much worse than what we're led to believe when we hear the phrase idolatry or whoredom. There's so much deeper, disgusting matters taking place. And it says that the land is filled with bloodshed, filled with violence. Anytime you hear that phrase, anytime we read about the bloodshed, please understand this is always should be alluding back to the time before the flood. And one of the great fruits of the immortals when the Watchers came down was violence and war and fighting. These were like intimately linked together when it came to sacrifices and offerings, cannibalism, all of these dark, horrible things that were taking place until it says the whole earth was filled with violence. Every thought and intention of the heart of man was only evil continually. That's the level of brokenness and depravity that was taking place before them. So when he's comparing his people to this is why we see severe localized judgments coming down, because this is looking like a microcosm of the Watchers. This is looking like the fruit of that kingdom once again. And that's why he's dealing with it. And say to your brothers, O my people, and to your sisters, O compassion one, strive with your mother. Strive, for she is not my wife, nor am I her husband. Let her put away her whorings from her face and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked, and shall set her up as on the day she was born, and shall make her like a wilderness, and shall set her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. And I shall not have compassion on her children, for they are the children of whorings. For their mother has whored. She conceived them. She who conceived them has acted shamelessly. For she said, I go after my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my drink. Therefore, see, I am hedging up her way with thorns. I shall wall her in so that she does not find her paths. She shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and shall seek them, but not find them. Then she shall say, Let me go and return to my first husband, for then it was better for me than now. And she did not acknowledge that I gave her grain and new wine and oil, and increased her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. Therefore shall I turn back and shall take my grain in its time, and my new wine in its appointed time. And I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. And now I shall uncover her shame before the eyes of her lovers, and no one shall deliver her from my hand. And I shall cause all her rejoicing, her festivals, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, even all her appointed times to cease, and lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she had said, These are from my harlot fees that my lovers have given me. And I shall make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. And I shall punish her for the days of the Baals to which she burned incense, adorned herself with rings and jewelry, and went after her lovers, and forgot me, declares Yahuwah. This is what struck us. If you guys haven't watched our Becoming a Lenite or Becoming a Millenite series, they're really important for a reason. Because when you read this chapter, you understand this is the life that we're living in today. Like, we're still living and experiencing the oppression from going out and being whores to the true creator. Like, we are still experiencing the consequences that come when we turn ourselves away from his path of truth and we follow the deceiver into whoredom. Like, it's not always just physical carnal whoredom we're talking about. There's spiritual idolatry. There's spiritual yoking to these other deities. And it's always about, you know it by who you obey. Like, that's how you know who you truly love, like who you obey. That's an indicator of it. And when people forsake the commands of Yahuwah, Yahuwah literally says, I take from them their grain, their wool, their linen, their oil, their wine, and their water. And he's like, you go get it from them. You go get it from them. I'm going to take away the silver and the gold I gave you, because you took that silver and gold and you used it to literally build up the kingdom of the immortals. You used it to build up Baal and Asherah. Like, we literally used it to finance the corporate entities that are destroying our nation, destroying our people. Like, we've literally taken our wages and given them over to the very people that ravage us. Like, this is applicable for our time and our life still. And as we saw that, that's a brutal judgment. That's a brutal judgment. Like, if you turn back to wearing natural fibers, you will be unbelievably blessed. Your physical body will be relieved of a burden, a toxological burden. Like, you're carrying on a toxic load on your skin on a regular basis when you wear synthetic fibers. Like, it's a reality. Like, they transmit the electric poisons that are just funneling into us on an ongoing, continual basis. Static electricity is not conducted through linen. Like, you can't build up a static charge, but you can when you're wearing polyester. You can when you're wearing nylon. That's why some of you who are like watching this right now, you feel hot and irritated all the time. It's a lot of times it's that clothing that you're physically wearing on your body. It's one of those things that, like, we made a strategy towards changing the direction of like our wardrobe, just to try to pursue these things. We're like, well, if we come back to Yahuwah, and we're going to read it, if we come back to him, he promises to give these things back to us. Like, he'll give us our oil back. He'll give us our wool back. He'll give us our linen back. He'll give us our grain back. We're like, oh, this is why fresh milled flour, like fresh milled grains, have literally every vitamin, mineral, and amino acid like you need to live, except for just a couple. They are literally like powerhouse of energy and fuel and sustenance. And part of the promised blessings for us is that he will feed us the bread to satisfaction. But everything else that you've ever eaten, you guys, it really is dead bread. It's harmful to your body. It's not beneficial at all. Sifted flours are not beneficial for your body. They cause harm to your body. This is why people react with celiac disease and gluten intolerances. It's because they're eating something that's dead. It's like cursed. It's not good for you. It was never designed to be that way. It's literally the pastries and the dainties of kings. They ate that stuff. And it said they grow fat by that stuff. And that's not desirable towards us. That's because they could afford somebody to sit there and sift out 30% of the actual material, okay, is lost. That's expensive when you're buying your grain and then you're taking 30% out of it and you're throwing that to the pigs and the other animals to try to fatten them up and healthy, make them all healthier, the bran and the germ. That's what they sell. That's why they're like, we'll sell you bran flakes. You guys will love your raisin bran. It'll be great. Just have a little raisin bran. It'll help you to poop. It's like, yeah, but if you just ate the wheat berries themselves, like you would poop great. You get rid of toxins all at the same time, and you would feel incredibly invigorated from all of the complex fatty acids and vitamin E and vitamin B complexes, which most of us are like deficient in. When they sifted that stuff out, you guys, people literally went insane with depression and they would kill themselves and suicides and their hearts would stop and beriberi disease. All these crazy diseases broke out and they're like, whoa, we can't sift out everything. So we'll enrich it with a couple other things. The gods, the immortals that everyone was bowing down and worshiping in the Industrial Revolution and the gods of liberty and when all the people were being sacrificed in all these revolutions. Those gods, you're like, here, we have a secret recipe for fueling you all. It's called the Industrial Revolution. Get ready. It's coming for you. And this is when they pioneered so many of this horrible atrocities of convenience over the sake of provision of sustenance for our lives. But anyways, let's jump back in here because there's good news. At the end of it, he's like, I'm going to give it back to you. You cry out to Yahuwah, he'll give it back to you. Check this out. Therefore, see, I am alluring her and shall lead her into the wilderness and shall speak to her heart and give to her vineyards from there and the valley of Achor as a door of expectation. And there she shall respond as in the days of her youth, as in the days when she came up from the land of Mitzrayim. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you shall call me my husband and no longer call me my Baal, my Lord. And I shall remove the names of the Baals from her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And in that day I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and with the birds of the heaven, with the creeping creatures of the ground. When bow and sword and battle break, I break from the earth. I shall make them lie down in safety. And I shall take you as a bride unto me forever, and take you as a bride unto me in righteousness and in right ruling and loving commitment and compassion. And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness, and you shall know Yahuwah. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahuwah, that I answer the heavens, and they answer the earth, and the earth answer the grain and the new wine and the oil, and they answer Yisrael. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who were not my people, you are my people, while they say, my Elohim. Isn't that just beautiful? He literally, his goal, understand the goal of this kingdom warfare that we are in is to get rid of these mighty ones, that these immortals, these other gods would no longer be on our lips, that they would no longer be the ones that we give our time, our energy, our resources, our worship to. That we would instead become a set apart people who are not willing to give in to the sovereign's commands, who are not going to comply, who do not consent to augmentation strategies, who do not consent to the absolute destruction of morality and identity and culture, who refuse to give in to the compromises that cost so many people their callings. At the heart of it, there's a lot of people out there who were made to be warriors, frontline warriors for the kingdom of Yahuwah, but instead, because of the pressures of this world, our families even, They have resisted that calling. They have fled from it. And you know what? I pray that Yahweh would please pray with me that he would stir up the desire for people to go after it, to use all of their time and their energy, their resources that they can to try to labor in his kingdom, to set captives free, that he would raise up another generation of people, of children who do not follow after the ways of wickedness, who aren't raised by Disney, who aren't bowing down at the altars of entertainment, who instead are set apart from that, who labor and give their time to study, who read for themselves, who articulate, who are able to be competent articulating why they believe what they believe, who are apologists, defenders, warriors, right? That's what we need. We need that now more than ever. And you know what? By having a hunger for this word, by instilling in that next generation a hunger for this word, by comparing it and helping them to understand how it translates to our life today, that these things that took place in the time of Hosea, during the kings, and during the times when there was no king, in the days of Judges, that these battles that have been taking place for all these generations are still taking place today. And we have an opportunity to raise up a totally different generation, one that's set apart, totally ferocious, all out committed for the kingdom of Yah. Whether we are 7 years old or whether we're 77 years old, we every single day have an opportunity to choose which God are we going to serve? Which immortal are we bowing down to? Or are we going to serve the eternal one? Are we going to serve the one who has sent for us the true deliverer, the one who was the lamb slain before the foundations of the world, the word who became flesh? Like, let's just jump into First John here because it's the greatest book ever. Oh, First John, you guys. I'm trying to think of a parallel. Let me just tell you about a weapon system real quick. When I think of like First John, you guys, I think of the A10 Warthog. Yes. It's like been around since the 70s. The A10 Warthog, just a ferocious fighter. All right, I know some of you guys don't care for my analogies to weapons. Don't even care because the A10 is a thunderous cannon of incredible machine like glorious powerhouse stuff. Oh, now it's called the Fairchild Republic A10. Look at this, just garbage branding of they put on these poor creatures known as machines. They're like, whichever corporate entity that now owns the A10 Warthog's rights to its name is going to be right there in the press release of it. You guys get it. Stinking hate this stuff. Check this out. Let me show you this. The A10 Warthog. Yes. Look at this monstrosity. Okay, the A10 Warthog. This thing was built and designed around a weapon system. Okay, they have the GAU-8 Avenger. This guy right here shoots soda cans. Basically, it basically shoots vomits out in prodigious 3,000, 4,000 rounds. Just it really more sounds like just. It's a Gatling gun. Okay. So these barrels each rotate. And as they rotate, one round fires off every time. It's right here on the top. I believe it's on the top. I've never got to shoot this thing. Life dream bucket list, fly around and shoot melt holes in armored tanks with this thing. So it's a little bit offset. If you can see, it's not exactly in the center line of this thing because it causes so much thrust. It literally, when this gun fires, this GAU Avenger, when it fires, the plane's thrust is not able to counteract the recoil. Think about that. It's got so much recoil from these 30 millimeter Vulcan cannon, terrifying, thunderous things coming out of it. There you go. There you see some firing. First of all, the cloud of smoke is almost blinding. The plane literally slows down. It's incredible. But it was designed to have these massive battles in tank zones with the Soviet Union. They're like, we're going to have these crazy tank showdowns, so we better build something that can take an incredible beating. So the pilot sits here in a tub of titanium. That's it. He sits in a bathtub. He's doing his hot immersions inside that thing. I guarantee it, son. But that tub of titanium is there for like an armor protection system so that no matter how many times this whole thing gets shot to pieces, it's still going to keep flying and that pilot's going to be alive just long enough to get the plane home. So even if the pilot dies, they're like, whatever. We still got this sweet, savage piece of aircraft equipment left around. It's real. Soldiers are mostly disposable. Fighter pilots are way higher up on the list of people that they like to keep alive in the military. General soldiers, they call them dogs, are not so. But anyways, this thing's been around for a long time, and it's incredibly effective at slower speeds like ground combat. You know, when soldiers need like protection and reinforcements, send in the reinforcements. They send the GAU Avenger, and it rains down just a hellacious amount of firepower on top of its enemies. So I'm like shockingly biased towards this aircraft system. I got to hold it. I got to stand in front of the, I was at a air show when I was young. I went to a lot of air shows when I was being groomed by the military to get all kinds of up in their business and be their slave. And I got to stand in front of one of these A10 Warthogs and was just like, I got to hold one of their 30 millimeter rounds. I have it somewhere near here. If any of you guys have any depleted uranium rounds, please send them my way. You know what I'm talking about? Or just tungsten penetrating ones. You know what I'm saying? They've got armor piercing incendiaries. They've got high explosive rounds. It's just so fun. Anyways, I got to hold one of these rounds at an air show and I got to touch the barrel of this thing. It was like, oh my gosh, I want to be in that thing so bad. Every time I think of First John, I think of the A10. First John is that book. Literally, John is like, okay, I know I told you guys some crazy stuff in Revelation. It's going to get really nutso. Like, have you read Revelation recently? Just go to Revelation 12. He had to write another book, bunch of letters, because the people read Revelation and like, oh my gosh, how are we going to deal with that? You should read First John on a regular basis all the time. As much of this other stuff that you're going to read about, you're like, we're going to read about, the Freemasons and the Jesuits and all this other stuff. It's like, just go wash your mind in the book of First John. You'll be like, yes, we can do this. It's going to be okay. Yeah, wins. First, let's just read Revelation 12 because it's just don't ever forget this. This is like John witnessing. Remember, there's 5 gospels: John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Revelation. Revelation is the one that was dictated directly by Yeshua, the revealed King of Kings. It was like literally given to him face to face, like when they talked to Moses, face to face style. This is a very important book. The only book in the scriptures, by the way, you're commanded that you get a blessing just for reading it. So if you want to store up some silver and gold in heaven, you know what I'm saying? Read Revelation on repeat. Revelation 12. And a great sign was seen in the heaven, a woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another scene in the heaven. See a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on his heads. And his tail draws 1/3 of the stars of the heaven, and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she bore a son, a male, who is to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron. Oh, savage, you guys. There's that A10 stuff, you know what I'm saying? Just crazy, amazing warrior being born here. And her child was caught away to Elohim and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days. So my mind jumps right back to Hosea. As soon as I hear like she fled to the wilderness, I'm like, oh my gosh, Hosea. She's like, remember, the Father appoints these trials in our life. He allows these trials to come into our life. And some of them, you guys, are to draw you into the wilderness with him. Sometimes you're suffering persecution from your family, your friends, your job, your boss, the environment. Like sometimes you're suffering that to draw you into the wilderness, to maybe prune out distractions from your life so that you can go and learn from your Father about his covenant that he has for you, to restore your identity, to turn you back towards him. Anytime I read, and he drew her into the wilderness, they were taken into the wilderness. The Messiah's led into the wilderness. Like where is John the Baptist, the immerser? Where is he? He's out in the wilderness. This is a place where people are led at very specific times in their life for very critical reasons. Never, ever. I know it's hard in the wilderness. I know it's tough in the wilderness, but never, you got to yield to that time of refinement. You got to yield to it because it's where really the roots of your faith will deepen. And you know what? You get to see the Father provide for them that protection. One thing I wanted to mention too, when it talks about the dragon sweeping 1/3 of the stars away, there is by no means any evidence that this has already happened or this happened at the fall when Hillel ben Shahar, when he rebelled and he clearly came down and was cast down. Like, remember we read last time in Luke 10, was it Luke 10? Maybe Luke 10, 18 or 19, right before that. When he says, Yeshua said, I saw Satan fall like lightning. This is the very chapter where we get that Satan is also the great red dragon. They're one and the same. It says he saw him fall to the earth like lightning. What it doesn't say is that 1/3 of the immortals also fell with him right then. We clearly have at the times of Jared, the days of Jared, the watchers came down at Mount Hermon. They made their oath. That time was some of the immortals rebelling and coming down. Okay. there is a progressive falling away that can take place here, and literally to where it's like Paul is warning women to cover their hair for the sake of the angels while they're praying, because they can still be tempted and fall. This is why the immortals still can rebel at any given time, you guys, all the way up until the very end. This is why it literally says in First Corinthians 6:3, maybe, that says you will judge angels. People will judge angels. It's not the good angels. Like, they don't need any judgment, right? But we're going to judge these immortals that rebel. That's a huge deal. This is like kind of the crux of why there's such a hatred between the sons of the dragon and the sons of righteousness, because we literally are pointed over them in the hierarchy, and there's this hatred towards us for that. They don't want to submit to us. Like, when it describes how beautiful and incredibly awesome these immortals were made to be, like the way they look, what, like their nature, they're astounding beyond our wildest understandings. And so for them to look at us as ones that are going to be on a hierarchy above them is just a test of pride and a test of humility, right? Submission to Yahuwah's plan. It's a big deal. So, like when it says he sweeps a third of those stars away, a third of these immortals are going to come down with us, with him in his rebellion. This is a progressive falling away. It doesn't mean all at once. It can literally mean that this is going to take place over time. And this is why I literally think you guys we're dealing with like worse tactics of the enemy, and it's only going to increase. And we literally are going to be battling massive onslaughts of the immortals on an ongoing perpetual basis as the days grow towards those birth pains. You know what I'm saying? Towards the great tribulations. I'm still preaching. I'm preaching. I'm preaching heartily. It's okay, my love. It sounds like you had I can't wait to find out about it. Sounds like you found some treasures. I heard you found a hide. Can't wait. My wife found me some sheep hides. Hallelujah. Glory to Yah. I love animal hides. I'm sitting on a reindeer hide. I love them so much. I want to just lay on a reindeer hide. Seriously, put it down on your bed and sleep on the reindeer hide with your linen sheets on top of that. Oh my God. That's magnificent. You feel like a royal. I'll tell you what, you'll feel kingly for a moment in time. It's wonderful. It's great. Just tuck it away for what it's worth. There's a reason people slept on this stuff. They used to unroll their hides and sleep on that. I mean, it's a great bedroll. Anyways, I digress. And there came to be fighting. Oh, yes. In the heaven, Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon. Hallelujah. And the dragon and his messengers fought. They were not strong enough, nor was a place found for them in the heaven any longer. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He's the one who leads the world into whoredom. All of it. At the very pinnacle, the origin point of the story of who is it that leads the world into whoredom, it is the dragon. This is ultimately the greatest of all of our adversaries, without question. The greatest tactician, the pure source of the intelligence array of these agents of evil. This is where it comes from, you guys. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in the heaven, now have come the deliverance and the power and the reign of our Elohim and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers who accused them before our Elohim day and night has been thrown down. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb, the words of their witness, the words of their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death. Because of this, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has little time. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to a male. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. And out of his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river after the woman, to cause her to be swept away by the river. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the river which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Elohim and possessing the witnesses of Yeshua, Messiah. That's who he and all those immortals go to make their war with. those who guard the commandments of Yahweh and keep the testimonies of Yeshua, keep the witnesses of Yeshua. That's it. So if you want to find out whose team you're going to be on, you want to like go into battle, son. That's it. That's who it is. At the end of the day, that's who we're fighting against. Those immortals and their great wrath. That's what we're dealing with. And if we're some of us, you gotta like we gotta bulk up, son. You know what I'm saying? Like we gotta spiritually condition ourselves to resist now because we're not taking the best shot that the enemy's got. You know what I'm saying? Like they're still organizing and strategizing, and there's still a lot of the agents of evil, the people, right? There's still a lot of mutual animosity between the Jesuits, right? And some of the Theosophists. There's still a lot of people that are in the dragon bloodlines of the Li family in China and those that are over in Japan and the hierarchy that rules over there. There's still a lot of battles that happen between these things. That's why these like 10 horns of the dragon, like there's these 10 economic zones that have been divided by the Club of Rome, for instance. They have divided the earth according to their 10 economic and political zones, financial zones. That's kind of those 10 horns kind of being manifested or trying to be brought forth. Those zones, they fight amongst each other on a regular basis. It's a dog eat dog world. Okay. You got a bunch of immortals, gods that are appointed over each and every one of those zones, right? And they themselves want to climb the pyramid. They want to get and position themselves in a better hierarchy, right? There's a pantheon of these gods. There's a pantheon, a ranking system of them. And they're trying to ascend on that hierarchy. And you got other ones that are trying to set each other up to sweep each other's legs. Like that's the Game of Thrones, you guys. That's one of the spiritual forces that we battle against is literally called thrones. That's literally what they are. They are a rank in the kingdom of darkness that we battle against, one of these immortals. That's who you're fighting against on certain occasions. So understand it's not always that you're just battling demons and you're battling the principality or a spiritual wickedness in high places. There's all kinds of hierarchies that you're battling with, and they themselves have their own self-interest in this. And this is why, like when we pray things like ask the Father to send confusion into the camp of the enemy, that we ask that the sword of the enemy would turn and devour his own house, right? You see these things in the scriptures. Like we see that during the battles, Yahuwah would literally cause confusion to break out in the camp of the enemy, and they would turn on each other, like in Gideon, right? They turn and start fighting each other and killing each other. And you're like, yes, that's what we want to take place. We're like, we want them to kill each other and stomp each other out. So then we don't have to do that. That's some of the ways that we can like intercede and pray. But let's go over to First John because he's got that Gatling gun to help us just way down like 6,000 rounds a minute of just relentless, decimating force on force, meeting the enemy fire. Check this out. First John 1. Oh, memorize this book, you guys. I have not memorized it. I have to challenge myself with it. But this is one of those books to memorize because it's just so critical. We get our identity of like so many definitions of understanding for how we deal with this. What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked upon, and our hands have handled concerning the word of life. And the life was manifested. And we have seen and bear witness and announced to you that everlasting life which was with the Father and was manifested to us. We announce to you what we have seen and heard, so that you too might have fellowship with us. And truly, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Yeshua Messiah. And we write this to you in order that your joy might be complete. This is the message which you have heard from him and announced to you, that Elohim is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and are not doing the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Yeshua Messiah, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. If we say that we have no sin, we are misleading ourselves, and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he is trustworthy and righteous to forgive us the sins and cleanse us of all unrighteousness. If we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar, and his word is not in us. What a rejoicing, joyful testimony right there, you guys. Isn't it a wonderful thing that he has compassion on us and grants us an opportunity to have forgiveness of sins? Isn't he so good to us in that? Man, what a thing to rejoice in, just to thank him because he lives, because he lives. Hallelujah. Life is worth living just because he lives, Never lose sight of that. These are like those simple, wonderful promises that are in the scripture that we can never lose heart of. No matter how much the enemy comes to you and tries to beat you down for your sins and tries to screw you up and cause you to trip and fall, understand our Father is compassionate. He is ever loving, and he demonstrated that through the life of his son, through the sacrifice that his son gave, and he gives us an opportunity to come back to him. So no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how far you've gone back down into those familiar sins, don't lose heart, brother. Don't lose heart, dear sister. You're beloved. You are loved, and you are still cherished by our Creator no matter where you are in. He understands how this world is set up against you. He understands that the snares of this world have been laid in front of you and has drawn you away to do the enemy's desires. He knows these things, and he wants to empower you, to give you the tools that you need in order to overcome. He is a good father, and he will surely give you a good reward, a good inheritance. Trust in him, call upon him, and ask him to deliver you, to bring you back out of this. There is never a greater opportunity for you to confess your sins, to be freed from those things. And you know what? To be immersed, to go and wash yourself in the water. You don't need anybody else to come in and baptize you. You can go and be renewed, no matter if you've had it 5 times, no matter if you've only done it once. There's no limit to how many times you can go into the water and ask the old man to die and float down the river, and you can be born again to the new one. That is our gift that the Father gives to us, because we should be washed and cleansed. We got a dirty, disgusting world out there. And you know what? That world gets on us sometimes. But you know what? Keep going. Don't give in. Don't give up, brothers. My little children, I write this to you so that you do not sin. And if anyone sins, we have an intercessor with the Father, Yeshua Messiah, a righteous one. And he himself is an atoning offering for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for all the world. And by this we know that we know him, if we guard his commands. That's those enemies of the dragon. Remember that? Those who guard Yah's commands. And if we say, I know him, and do not guard his commands, he is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever guards his word, truly the love of Elohim has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. The one who says he stays in him ought also to walk, even as he walked. Beloved, I write no fresh command to you, but an old command which you have heard from the beginning. The old command is the word which you heard from the beginning. Anytime you hear that word, the beginning, you should be thinking Genesis. He's saying go back to Genesis to hear the word that he commanded us. Like his commands start in Genesis. They're still applicable to us in any way that we possibly can keep them. They're still good for us. They're for our good. And we can learn from them, and we can apply them to our life. And it will totally empower us to walk a set apart lifestyle. Again, I write you a fresh command, which is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light now shines. The one who says he is in the light and hates his brother is in the darkness until now. The one who loves his brother stays in the light, and there's no stumbling block in him. But the one who hates his brother is in the darkness and walks in the darkness and does not know where he is going, because the darkness has blinded his eyes. I write to you, little children, because your sins have been forgiven on account of him, of his name. I write to you, fathers, because you have known him from the beginning. I write to you, young men, because you have overcome the wicked one. I write to you, little children, because you have known the Father. I write to you, fathers, because you've known him from the beginning. I wrote to you, young men, because you are strong, and the word of Elohim stays in you, and you have overcome the wicked one. When the word of Elohim stays in us, it gives us the power to overcome the wicked one. When this word, when we chew on it, when we digest on it, when we take the time to do those tedious tasks of sowing that word deeper in, of getting a better understanding of it, this is an opportunity for us to help overcome the wicked one. We need that word abiding in us, flourishing in us, so that when the enemy comes in with all of those strategies and tactics to try to snare us and draw us back into his kingdom, to draw us back and away from the ways of Yahuwah, to bring us back into that net of whoredom, we have this word, this living sword, to cut our way out of that dragnet, to get ourselves loose from it. We have an opportunity to take hold of it and to not be taken captive by the devil to do his desires. This word is a tool, right? I love this one. This is a fantastic knife. It is incredibly sharp. The ergonomics, let me just go off of a rant. How a knife sits in your hand is very important when it comes to long-term use, right? How this sits in my hand, how it's balanced in my hand, I know that the person who designed this knife uses knives like their life depends on it. This comes from somebody, this is made by someone named Winkler. These are Winkler knives. This guy makes knives, serious knives for serious folks. This guy has designed a knife that fits in the hand and points in the hand in a way that is natural and fluid, so that it's an extension of my hand. It's an extension of my body. I can close my eyes and I know where this knife and where that edge is at every place that it is. I can feel it. I can feel where it is. I can point and identify it. There's other knives that you pick up and you put in your hand and you're like, what the heck? Is I'm going to hurt myself with this thing. It's not natural how it sits in my hand. It's not the way that it's balanced. There's a lot of knives that are total junk. Oh my gosh, they're very good to be thrown out and trampled under men. Trample them under men. Like combo edge knives. You got pocket knives? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. You got pocket knives that have a straight edge, right? Right here. And then there's a serrations on the back half. And I just want to break out. I just want to smash them into a tree and let them rust and rot. How stupid. I do. I know. I just hate them so much because now you try to sharpen that knife and you got to use two different methods of sharpening it entirely, right? How are you going to sharpen that with stone? How are you going to sharpen that with a stone? You can't. You need a triangular, very specific shaped thing to sharpen serrations. Serrations are great for cutting through fibrous material. Like if you're a rock climber and you're around tree climber, a tree assassin, arborist, that's where a serrated knife, like a Spyderco, makes some of the best serrated knives that are out there. Scary sharp stuff, deadly stuff. Those are great for that use. People that are around fishing lines and a lot of like serious cordage stuff, guys that work on boats and around nets. Serrations have their purpose, but they're awkward to sharpen. A knife that is built in such a way as to not be helpful in your hands is no value, right? Versus one that is methodically built out from its conception to its production to fulfill that task, so that it's even got this thing right here, right? Jimping on the back of it. This is so that when my thumb sits there, I can index where my thumb is, and I got a little resistance so that my thumb doesn't slide up into a place that I don't want it to be. Like I know exactly where it is, right? How much gap is here? This is like called choil, or kind of a way to protect my finger from sliding up here and going into that unbelievably sharp, like razor sharp, hair splitting sharp knife that this is. You don't want to go anywhere over that, but you got other knives that don't have any level of that to protect you from it. And even the way that it sits at the back here, so that it sits in it has a little extra weight that sits at the back of my hand so that it helps to counterbalance it. It's just really well done, right? And then the sheath, right? Don't mind the little sticky tacky stuff I put on there so I can stick it to my wall. This sheath is made for people that do sneaky stuff with their knives, right? Most people have Kydex sheaths, super reasonable, but they're loud. Listen to this. Oh, ready? Versus the click of a Kydex holster. That's so you can have a very quiet draw and you can put it away very quietly. It's leather lined Kydex, right? So you use plastic to thermal mold it into shape, and then you can put it away, and then you have leather touching your skin, which is nice. This thing smelled so strongly of chemicals though that it was almost, I couldn't be around it for a while. I had to let this thing air out for days and days and days to try to get it to not get the funk. It's too skunky. Now it's a lot thicker of a sheath because of that, but I love this knife. If I'm going to bring any knife with me, it's going to be a neck knife because that's what I bring all the time. There's a lot of places where you can't carry a knife this size. However, otherwise, my number 2 knife that I'm going to bring on my person is going to be this one because I can do a lot of tasks with this one. But you must understand, when we put the word of Elohim into us, like when we literally treasure up his word in our hearts, when we read it and like digest it and use it, it is like picking and helping to cultivate the perfected use of this knife. It is diligence so that the day you draw it out, man, you are ready to use it. You're comfortable with it. You have familiarity with it. This sword right here that I'm holding in my hands was perfectly made by Yahuwah, right? It was made for us to wield it just for you. The word that I'm reading, right? The word that you're reading was made for you. It was made for you to wield it effectively for this time, for this generation, to wage a war against these immortals, to seek Yahweh's kingdom first, to know our God and be mighty in deed and action, to do great exploits. We are supposed to be clothed with power from on high. And that comes from walking in this word. That comes from knowing it, from eating it, from chewing on it, from talking about it, from thinking about it. Like when we study his covenant, It gives us a powerhouse of resources to overcome these enemies of ours. Let's keep going. Do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him, because all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but it is of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust of it, but the one doing the desire of Elohim remains forever. Little children, it is the last hour. And as you've heard that the anti Messiah is coming, even now, many anti Messiahs have come. This is how we know that it is the last hour. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they'd been of us, they would have stayed with us. But in order that it might be made manifest that none of them were of us. And you have an anointing from the set apart one, and you know all. I did not write to you because you do not know the truth, but because you know it, because no falsehood is of the truth. Who is the liar except the one denying that Yeshua is the Messiah? This is the anti Messiah, the one denying the Father and the Son. No one denying the Son has the Father. The one confessing the Son has the Father as well. As for you, let that stay in you, which you have heard from the beginning. If what you've heard from the beginning stays in you, you shall also stay in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise that he has promised us, everlasting life. I have written this to you concerning those who lead you astray. That's those false apostles, right? Don't forget the 2 Corinthians 11, like the Satan masquerades as an angel of light, transforms and shapeshifts himself, and his apostles do likewise. We've got a lot of this breaking out right now. Lots of people going around filled with the spirit of the Antichrist, going around denying Messiah, and then apologetically seeking to lead other down that pitfall of curse. It's an absolute curse, and it's a destruction of their salvation. It's a decimation of their faith. What a worthless doctrine to swallow. It says in 2 John, he says, don't even eat in their house. Don't even go into their house. Don't fellowship with them. Don't abide with them because they're possessed by the spirit of the Antichrist. They've been drinking from the synagogue of Satan's cup. And I'm telling you, it is doctrines of demons dripping from their veins. We had someone come to our house, not recently, but a little bit, not long ago, who had been literally went down and broke bread with somebody who was drinking from the cups of demons and was just saturated with this. And watch them neutralize their faith. They're like, been a warrior for 11 years, threw it away. Worthless menstrual rags now of faith. What a decimation. What a disgusting thing to lose. Like, I'm literally watching the falling away of the remnant. Like, I am sitting here watching people that I've known, ministries, throw it away at the end. Like friends of ours, people that we've been in relationship with for years, throw it out the door at the end. What a disgusting waste of time. It is. It's a disgusting waste of time. How worthless of a faith to just start throwing out Bible books and being like, nope, 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 nope. Like, you know better. Oh my gosh, what pride. That's the pride of life. That's their sin. That's the thing that got them. It's like, I know better. I know better. It's the pride of life. It's a super toxic infection that got into the heart. That's where iniquity was born in Halal ben Shahar, in Lucifer's heart. That's where it was born. And they're going right back to him to learn secret wisdom. They're drinking from the same cup as the Gnostics, you guys. It's utterly deplorable. And it's just disgusting. And it makes me angry, like super angry. It does. You like, these are the things I deal with behind the scenes that like don't come on the screen very often, because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and make my target adjustments. That's it. Like, so I'm going to make sure to hammer on to what it is, our identity found through the Messiah. That's my counterforce. That's how I'll counterstrike it. Instead of going back and I'm not a debater. Like, I don't go in and have these weighty debates with people. I'm not interested in it whatsoever. I'm going to go wage a war over here. I fight asymmetrically. I do not fight direct engagements like that. That's not how I fight. I'm not a big dude. I'm not a big dude. Like, I fight with tiny knives in dark places unexpectedly. That's it. So like, I do that with the scripture now. You know what? This is the book that we have to stand on. And I've built my entire life and my foundation of everything. Like, the reason I'm out here and alive is because I literally experienced deliverance from demonic strongholds, from generational curses. My family had raised me up to be an image bearer of the beast. That's where I was raised. I was raised in the house of dragons with people that literally emboss upon their sons the mark of the Antichrist. like a circle with an X, the serpent encircling, the dragon encircling a cross, a red cross. Like that was my branding from my youth. That's what I was made and raised up to be. And you know what? I have seen the Messiah when I called upon him, Jesus, as I knew him then. When I called upon him, he answered me and he delivered me from my despair, from my distresses. And you know what? I will never lose sight of that. I will never forsake him. You know what? I entreat him day and night to help me be faithful to the bitter end. But I will call upon him. I will call upon his name. And you know what? As I've gotten to know him and I've deepened my covenant, my understanding with him, I call upon him and I call upon my Father in heaven. And you know what? I have seen him answer me. I have seen him destroy those spiritual forces that came against me. I have seen him raise up ransom for me in the face of my enemies. I have seen him spare my family's life. Like my wife a year ago was dying in front of my eyes. Dying. She couldn't eat while she was pregnant. Like she had cholestasis. She was itching her skin off. She could not sleep. She couldn't digest food. Her liver, her pancreas were shutting down. Like she was dying. And I was trapped. I didn't have I didn't have any money to help her, like take her to doctors. I didn't have any means to do anything. I was living in a forest on somebody else's land that had like given us land to use and live on. Like I was living in a forest in an RV filled with mold, totally trapped, preparing to give birth to baby at the time. We didn't know. Like we were going to give birth in a tent with a wood stove that somebody lent us, an Amish hot water heater. It was a wood stove that had a big tank of water on the top. And I got an animal trough for her to give birth in. I was like, this is it. My baby's going to be born totally like Jesus style in a manger. It's going to be born in a manger, I guess. Like my wife was willing to do that with me. She was like, honey, like she was willing to do that because she was trying to live out and be obedient to what Yah had put on her. But I was watching her strength dissipate. I was watching her strength just dissipate day after day. And she was getting weaker and sicker. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like here we are, like Yah saved her life for my sake. Like Paul writes in his letters that there was one of his brothers, a dear brother of his, who was sick unto death, but Yahweh saved his life, and for compassion for him. That's literally what I felt like he did for me and my wife. Like for sake of mercy and compassion towards me, he saved her life. My wife very likely could have died giving birth to my twins. Very much so. That was an actual real possibility, a probability, a statistical probability that was not to be like mitigated from. It was a reality. She labored for 3 nights from that level of sickness. She like was incapable of moving much. She was almost bedridden. It was horrible. It was so horrible. And yet she so faced that. She did not have the fear of death. You remember what we read about those weapons that we have to fight against the dragon? The blood of the Lamb, the words of our testimony, and not loving our lives when faced with death. That's what she held to. She demonstrated that for my children. Like Naomi witnessed her mother struggle with the fear of death. Day 2. We talk about this all in our Deliverance Has Come video. If you guys have not watched it, I really encourage you to watch it. It's our birth story, unassisted birth story. We didn't have a midwife there. We never went and got ultrasounds. We tried to abstain from that system. If they knew she had twins, you guys, it would have been an automatic transfer and almost a guaranteed C-section. They would have like ripped her into pieces and sucked my babies out of her body. Very likely would have killed her, even more so. But we prayed like crazy, you know. We prayed. Somebody offered to like pay for us to have a midwife, and I was like, "Could you buy me a van? Like, I need a van. I don't need a midwife. I need a van." You know, and people are like, "No, you need a midwife." I'm like, "Gosh, dang it, I need a van." But we kept praying. We're like, Father, if we're being stupid and stubborn here, if like we're supposed to do something and have a midwife here, we'll do it. Like we'll do it. We're not totally opposed to all forms of modern medicine. Please understand, we do it within a reasonable degree. You know, when Jubilee in December last year, that was another time I went to try to go make some money because I was like struggling financially, and I was like, I'm going to go make some money. And somebody, you know, gave me a gig. While I was doing that, my daughter, for the first time in her life, falls down on our stair we have 3 stairs in the RV, tiny little half stairs, like 1/8 of an inch of a stair. She falls down as they're getting ready to go to bed, and she splits her lip open, like her teeth went through her lip and just cut it open. So it was like split, you know, like dangling open like this. So when she talked, it was all like, blah, blah, blah. It was bad. And I had the only car that we had. And my wife is like, oh my God. for those people that were very generous and letting us live in their driveway. Another family that was entertaining sojourners drove her to the hospital, and she got stitches. That girl was super brave, man. She held completely still, got stitches thrown in her face, It's like, we're not totally opposed to it. And we were willing. We're like, Father, we'll get a midwife if that's what we're supposed to have. But you know what? It was like, no. And so we kept entrusting ourselves to the Father. But at the same time, like, it was agonizing. A feeling of powerlessness, like I can't even describe to you, when you watch somebody you love suffer from severe chronic illness. Like, I became full caregiver for my children. And I don't enjoy being in that position at all. Internally, I'm like 40% an absolute exhausted, weary child still. Like, I'm still just longing for a time and a season to recover bodily, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually from so much trauma that's still undigested, if you will, that got put on hold once my second child was born, and then all my twins. And there's still like a deep desire to just recuperate, like have seasons where my family can just heal. It was a miracle to get to see the Father bring about the deliverance of those twin babies, and for my wife to wrestle through the fear of death on day 2. Like, maybe we should go to a hospital. Maybe we were foolish for doing that. Like, all those fears started coming up in here, which is normal during pregnancy, during birth, by the way, for a woman to feel like she's going to die all of a sudden, especially when they're going through the ring of fire and transition. Those are 2 times when that's like, it's normal. They might be screaming that they're going to die. It's a normal thing. You got to be ready for that. But this was like a moment where we prayed together with the other woman that was there, our friend who was helping us. And we just prayed, all of us together. And like, death fled from her. That fear of death fled from her. And she like passed the test. She entrusted herself to the Father. And you know what he did? He spared her life. And we have healthy children. She carried twins to full term, big 8.5-pound baby, gigantic son of mine. And my daughter Pearl, like, what an amazing testimony that it got to be. And we've got to see other families who've been able to give birth naturally because of that testimony. Like, that's why these are our weapons in our warfare. That's why the blood of the Lamb is such an effective weapon in our warfare, because it neutralizes our covenants that we had with these other gods, with these other immortals. When we call upon Yeshua to ransom us from these sins, from these strongholds, from these addictions, from these traumas, he has the power to do so, because he has been given authority over every principality, power, ruler, and dominion. Like, he has been seated in a position of authority to absolutely nullify these other contracts we have with these other gods. He is the one who has the power to do that. And you know what? He spared my wife's life. That being said, my wife still struggles with chronic sicknesses now more than she ever has throughout her life. Like, what mold has done to her body, it's made it like histamine crazy. Like, there's this like constant over freak out of histamine. And so she'll go from one ailment to another ailment to another ailment to another ailment chronically, And so, like, we're trying to, right now in this season, try to find a way to just devote our time and our resources to getting her well, to getting her healed, because she needs to recover from that. And part of the reason we couldn't was because obviously breastfeeding, when you're raising babies and stuff, it's not the time to do major detoxification. But we're starting to transition to a phase where we can get her into a more focused treatment and like get her the help that she needs, But pray for her, please. My wife is such a warrior. You guys don't see it. She's behind the scenes right now, wrangling a family so I can do this stuff. I used to always try to do these recordings late at night, but I'm doing some now during the day, and she's out there laying her life down. She's serving me and serving my family so that I can do this stuff. And I thank you to all the wives that lay their lives down and sacrifice everything for your children to have life. Like, women give their lives up for their babies to live. They give their lives away for their children. They're incredible, and they should be honored and blessed. Mothers have given their everything for these children to have life. And you know what? What an incredible testimony that they have. And may we bless them, honor them, for all those that give their lives to their children. What an incredible witness it's going to be. What are the very opposite of those that are haters and murderers of their own children. What a precious thing it is to cherish the life that we have. And may you guys do likewise. May you cherish those that Yahweh has entrusted to you. May you lay down your life for them and continue to seek for their deliverance and their ransom in every way. Hello, you want to come say hi? Come here. Look at this. Look at this. Come here, you. Here's one of my earrings. Hi. I am. Hello, ladies. You gonna say? You gonna say hi? You wanna say hi? You wanna say hi, Jubilee? You gotta say it up in here. You wanna tell Jubilee anything?
Hi.
Oh my gosh. And here's my thunderous son.
Oh,
Let's put this down a little. Hold on. Hold on. Put all this up here. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I hit him on the head. Oh gosh. You're fine. Your head's thick and tough. There you go. You're a really big guy. Here. Chew on my
What?
Hi.
Oh.
You don't have to touch it though. It'll make a bad banging noise in their ears. This is the arrows Yahuwah has entrusted to me. There you go. This is the good fruit that comes from someone who lays down their life. Because my wife laid down her life, we've got a bunch. Hallelujah. Go have big families, you guys. It's good for us. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's very well worth it. Oh. All right, you guys. You live dangerously. I've got to go. Talk to you soon. Take Big Thunder for me. They're all in here.